From the story, I became the pet of an alien empress, but she doesn't know I understand her language. Jake Carter opened his eyes slowly. His head was spinning. The last thing he remembered was working late in his garage on Earth, fixing a broken drone. Now he was lying on a soft purple cushion in a strange metal cage. The room around him was big and bright, filled with glowing plants and smooth silver walls. It didn't look like anything on Earth. He sat up and looked around. Outside the cage stood two tall aliens with blue skin, 4 arms, and long tails. Their eyes were bright green and glowed slightly. They were talking to each other in a strange language that sounded like music mixed with clicking sounds. Jake stayed quiet. He didn't want to draw attention. His heart beat fast in his chest. I've been captured, he thought, by aliens. He looked down at himself. He was still wearing his old jeans and t-shirt, a little dirty from the workshop. But now he was inside a golden cage with soft pillows and a bowl of water. He felt like a pet. One of the aliens pointed at him and laughed. The other one said something that made them both chuckle. Jake frowned. He didn't understand all the words, but something strange was happening. Slowly, the words began to make sense in his head. He had always been good with languages, and somehow, his brain started picking up patterns. Maybe they had left a translation signal running in the background. They thought he couldn't understand, but he could. He's a strange little thing, one alien said. Do you think the Empress will like him? She collects rare creatures, the other replied. And this one is from a new planet. She'll love it. Let's bring him to the palace. Jake's eyes widened. Empress? Palace? He didn't like where this was going. Hours later, the palace of Empress Virelia. The palace was even bigger and more beautiful than he expected. Shining towers stretched into the sky and flying ships moved through the air like birds. Aliens of many shapes and colors walked through glowing halls. Guards with silver armor and laser spears stood at every corner. Jake was brought into a huge throne room. He was carried in a floating cage by 2 guards. At the center of the room sat a tall figure on a crystal throne, Empress Virelia. She was different from the others. She had golden skin, silver eyes, and a long royal cloak made of living flowers. Her hair floated around her head like it was underwater. She looked powerful and dangerous. Jake lowered his head and tried to act like a confused animal. The Empress stood up and walked toward the cage. Her long fingers touched the bars gently. What a curious little creature, she said, smiling. So small and soft, is it intelligent? No, Your Grace, one of the guards answered. It does not speak. We believe it is a harmless mammal from a distant world. Perhaps a pet? A pet, the Empress repeated, thinking. Yes, I've never had one from Earth before. Jake kept his face blank. Inside, he was screaming. They really think I'm an animal. I need to play along until I can figure this out. The Empress tapped a panel on the cage and the door slid open. Jake didn't move. Come, she said gently. I won't hurt you. He stepped out slowly, keeping his head down. The Empress knelt and touched his cheek. You are soft, she whispered. I will call you Jakku. You will stay with me. Jake forced himself to purr. He had once owned a cat, and he remembered the sound. The Empress laughed with delight. So cute, she said. Take him to my private chamber. He will live beside me. That night, inside the Empress's chamber, the chamber was beautiful, with floating lights, soft music, and a huge window showing the stars. Jake sat on a soft round cushion beside the Empress's bed. She sat nearby, removing her crown and brushing her hair. You're quiet, she said, talking to him like a pet. That's good. The court is full of liars and snakes. I don't trust them. Jake listened carefully. He said nothing, but his mind was working fast. I know someone in my council is planning something, she said softly. A coup, perhaps. They think I don't notice, but I do. Jake blinked. A coup? Someone was trying to take her throne? That could lead to war, or worse. I wish I had someone I could trust, she whispered. Someone who just listens, like you. Jake looked up at her and tilted his head like a puppy. She smiled and patted his head. Good Jaku, she said. You don't judge me. You don't lie. Jake kept up the act, but inside, he was making a plan. Later that week, Jake learned quickly. He watched the guards, servants, and ministers. He pretended to be a harmless pet, curling up in the corner or chasing a toy ball. But when no one was looking, he memorized the palace layout. He noticed hidden cameras, door panels, and communication screens. At night, he sneaked out through small vents and listened to private talks. He heard names: Minister Kalor, General Rexa. These two were planning something dangerous. They wanted to bring down the Empress and take control. One night, Jake found a quiet storage room. He found old tech scraps and began building a small device. Nothing dangerous, just a jammer to block signals. He hid it under his cushion. He didn't know how long he could stay hidden. But one thing was clear. If Empress Virelia fell, Earth might be next. He had to help her. But without revealing, he understood everything. End of Part 1. Jake Carter, once a simple engineer from Earth, was now the secret protector of an alien Empress. He was a pet in her eyes, but soon they would all see that humans were more than just animals. They were survivors. They were clever. And they never gave up. From the story, I became the pet of an alien Empress, but she doesn't know I understand her language. Days passed inside the grand palace of Empress Virelia. Jake Carter, still pretending to be a harmless Earth creature, kept up his act. He walked on 2 feet but shuffled slowly. He made soft sounds like a pet. The aliens believed he was just cute, not smart. But Jake's eyes were always watching, his ears were always listening. Inside his mind, he was building a map of the palace, marking each hallway, door, and guard station. He knew where the weapons were stored, where the important council meetings were held, and who walked where each day. Secret ears in a silent room. Each night, when the palace went quiet and the lights dimmed, Jake would wait. Then slowly he'd crawl out from his cushion and use the small vent near the back of the Empress's room. The air tunnels were just wide enough for him to crawl through. They took him to other parts of the palace where no one expected to see. A pet. He moved silently like a shadow. One night he stopped above a small meeting room. Below, 2 alien figures were whispering. He peeked through the vent. It was Minister Kalor and General Rexa, the same names he had heard before. Kalor's voice was low but clear. The Festival of Flames is our chance. The palace will be full of guests. Security will be weak. We strike then. Rexa nodded. Do we have someone on the inside? Kalor grinned. Yes. Even her own guards are not loyal. We disable the shields, take control of the throne, and announce the change. The Empress will not survive the night. Jake held his breath. The festival was in 3 days. That gave him very little time. A clever ally. The next morning, Jake was in the garden with the Empress. She sat on a stone bench, sipping a strange blue drink. Flowers sang softly in the wind, changing colors with every note. Jake played with a round ball nearby, still acting like a pet. A young alien servant walked by, carrying a tray. She was small, thin, and had light purple skin. Her eyes were soft and kind. She glanced at Jake and slowed her steps. When the Empress left, the servant walked over. I've seen you watching, she whispered. You're not just an animal, are you? Jake froze. Had he been too careless? The girl smiled. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. My name is Sira. Jake gave a quiet nod and whispered back, Jake. Sira's eyes widened. You can speak. Only a little, Jake said, pretending he knew less than he did. She looked around to make sure no one was watching. Why are you pretending? Jake thought for a moment. If they know, they'll lock me up or worse. I want to help the Empress. Sira's face grew serious. She needs help. Something bad is coming. I heard Kalor talking to a guest last night. They want to hurt her. I know, Jake whispered. I need tools. Can you help me? She nodded. Meet me in the kitchen hallway tonight. I'll bring something. The Empress's secrets, that night, Back in her chamber, Empress Virelia sat beside Jake again. She looked tired. Her crown was off. Her eyes were distant. "You know, Jakku," she said softly, "being Empress is not as fun as it seems." Jake tilted his head. "Everyone smiles in front of me," she continued, "but I can feel their eyes behind my back. Sharp. Waiting." She sighed and stroked Jake's hair gently. "I miss having someone I can trust. You don't speak, but from the story, I became the pet of an alien empress, but she doesn't know I understand her language." The morning of the Festival of Flames had arrived. The palace was glowing with colors. Red, gold, and orange lights danced across the tall glass walls. Floating flowers released sweet smells into the air. Music from 1,000 instruments echoed through the halls. The festival was one of the biggest events in the Thalzar Empire. Leaders from many planets had come to the Empress's palace. Everyone wore their finest clothes. Servants moved quickly. Guards stood taller than usual. But Jake Carter wasn't thinking about celebration. He was thinking about survival. Today was the day the traitors planned to attack. Acting the part, Jake walked quietly beside Empress Virelia as she entered the grand celebration hall. His fur-like coat had been brushed and perfumed by the servants. A small golden collar hung around his neck, marking him as the Empress's special pet. He hated the collar, but today it helped him stay close. Virelia waved to the crowd. "Welcome, friends of the Empire," she said. "Let this festival be a symbol of peace and fire, rebirth and hope." The guests cheered. Jake stayed near her feet, acting calm and harmless, but his eyes scanned the room. He saw Minister Kalor talking to a guest near the fire fountain. General Rexa stood near the back with 4 guards. All of them looked too alert for a peaceful party. "They're ready," Jake thought. "Now I have to be." Inside a small ball he carried in his hands was the jammer he had built. Just one press of a hidden button, and enemy signals would be blocked for 5 minutes. He only had one chance to use it. A warning in the shadows. In the middle of the celebration, Jake slipped away while everyone was watching the fire dancers. He crawled under a long food table and popped into the kitchen hallway. There Sira was waiting. "They've started moving weapons," she whispered. "I saw crates marked with attack codes." Jake nodded. "It's happening." Sira looked nervous. "Be careful." "I will. Thank you, Sira." He reached out and touched her hand. For a second there was silence between them. Then Jake turned and slipped back into the party. The first strike. Suddenly a loud boom shook the walls. The lights flickered. People screamed. Guards ran in all directions. "Shield generators down," a voice shouted through a comm screen. Minister Kalor raised his hand. "Guards, protect the ministers," he shouted. But Jake knew it was all fake. Kalor was the one giving orders to the attackers. General Rexa pushed forward with a group of armed guards. "The Empress must be taken to safety," she called out. Jake knew what that meant. They were going to take her prisoner, or worse. Virelia looked shocked but stood strong. "Take me to the shield room," she said. Jake saw the traitors moving closer. He had to act now. He reached into the toy ball and pressed the button. Click. A soft pulse spread through the room. All the enemy comms suddenly went silent. No signals, no orders, no messages. Confusion spread. "What's happening?" Kalor shouted. "My comm is dead." Jake ran to Virelia and tugged on her robe. He pointed toward the side door. "Jakku?" she asked, surprised. "What is it?" Jake kept pulling. There wasn't time for words. Finally, she followed. The escape Jake led her through a servant hallway down a hidden stair. He had memorized the route from his night walks. No one followed them yet. They reached a quiet room deep below the palace. It was used for storage, but safe for now. Virelia was breathing hard. "How did you know this place, and what's going on?" Jake took a deep breath. This was the moment he had feared. He looked at her and spoke clearly. "You're in danger. Kalor and Rexa are traitors." Virelia stared at him. Her silver eyes went wide. "You spoke," she whispered. Jake nodded. I understand everything. I always have. Her face turned cold. You lied to me. I had to, Jake said. If they knew, they would have locked me away. I wanted to help you. Virelia paced back and forth. How much do you know? Jake explained everything. How he had listened through vents, built the jammer, watched their plans. He told her about Sierra and the warning signs. For a long time, the Empress said nothing. Then she walked up to Jake and looked him in the eyes. You risked your life, she said. To help me. Jake nodded. Yes. And you're from Earth? A world we barely understand? Yes. She smiled just a little. Maybe I judged your kind too quickly. Return to the fight. The Empress touched her bracelet and opened a private channel. Call loyal guards only, she said. Lock the council chamber. I know who the traitors are. The connection was weak, the jammer was still working, but the message got through. Then she turned to Jake. I'm going to the throne room. That's where they'll strike next. I'll come with you, Jake said. She nodded. Stay close, I may need you again. The throne room battle. When they entered the throne room, the battle had already begun. Kalor was standing near the throne, shouting orders to the guards who still followed him. General Rexa held a laser spear and was fighting off loyal soldiers. Virelia raised her voice. Now stand down, this is treason. Kaler laughed. Your rule is over, you trusted pets more than people. Jake stepped forward. At least her pets stopped your plan. Kaler's eyes widened. You speak? Jake smiled. Surprise. Virelia drew her blade. It was long and glowing red. I still rule this empire, she said, and I will protect it. She fought Kalor's guards with skill and grace. Rexa rushed at her, but Jake rolled under a bench and threw a small object that let out a loud flash. Rexa screamed and dropped her weapon. Loyal guards poured in. The fight didn't last long after that. Victory and truth. When the room was calm again, Virelia stood at the center. Kalor and Rexa were in cuffs. The other traitors were arrested. The throne was safe. Virelia looked at Jake. Without you, this would have ended very differently. Jake lowered his head. I only did what I had to. She turned to the crowd. This creature, this human, is no pet. He is a protector, a warrior from Earth, and from now on, he will be treated with honor. To you. Crowd clapped and cheered. Jake smiled, feeling proud. Not bad for someone who had started in a cage. From the story, I became the pet of an alien empress, but she doesn't know I understand her language. A week had passed since the failed attack during the Festival of Flames. The traitors, Minister Kalor, General Rexa, and their followers, were now in prison. The palace was peaceful again, but everything had changed. Jake Carter was no longer seen as a pet. He was now called the Earth Guardian by many citizens of the Thalzar Empire. News of his bravery had spread across space. Aliens from other planets were curious about humans. Some were surprised, others were afraid. And the Empress? She still called him Jakku. Life after the truth. Jake had been given a room of his own in the palace. It was smaller than the royal rooms, but larger than a servant's. He had clean clothes, a translator device, and food he could finally understand. Still, he wasn't used. To the new attention, guards saluted him, servants bowed, even nobles tried to talk to him, hoping to impress him. But Jake stayed quiet and watched. He didn't trust everyone. Some smiled with fake kindness, just like the traitors had before. He missed the days when he was invisible. Life was easier when no one noticed him. Private talks with the Empress. One evening, Empress Virelia invited Jake to her private chamber garden. It was a quiet place, filled with glowing trees and floating lights. The night sky above them sparkled, with purple moons. She poured 2 drinks, one for herself and one for Jake. You've been very quiet, she said, sipping slowly. I'm still thinking, Jake answered. About what? Jake looked at the stars. About Earth. About what? Comes next, about who I really am. Virelia set her drink down. You saved my life, Jake. You're more than a simple man from a forgotten planet. He gave a small smile. I used to be a technician, fixed machines, made coffee for officers. Never thought I'd end up protecting an empress. She laughed. Sometimes fate surprises us. There was a short silence between them. Then she asked, "Do you want to go back to Earth?" Jake didn't answer right away. "I don't know," he said. "I miss my people, but Earth never saw me the way your empire sees me now." Virelia looked thoughtful. "You have a place here, if you want it." A new problem. The next day, a messenger ship arrived at the palace. It carried a warning from a nearby system. A strange fleet had been seen near the edge of the empire. Their ships were unknown. Their signals made no sense, and they were getting closer. The Empress called an emergency meeting. Jake stood beside her as nobles and generals filled the chamber. "These ships," said one general, "do not match any known race. They do not respond to our calls. Their weapons are active." "Do we attack first?" asked another. "No," said Virelia firmly. "We wait. We learn. We do not fire unless we must." Jake stepped forward. "May I speak?" The room grew quiet. The generals looked at him. Virelia nodded. "Speak freely." Jake pointed at the map on the screen. "When I worked on space stations back on Earth, I saw patterns like this. These ships may not be here to attack. They might be testing us." "Testing us?" asked one noble. "Yes," Jake said. "Looking for weak points, seeing how we react." He walked closer to the screen. "If we show fear, they might press forward. But if we show balance, strength and calm, they might back away." The Empress smiled, spoken like someone who understands both machines and people. The visitor 2 days later, one of the strange ships broke away from the fleet. It came close to the Thalzar capital and stopped in orbit. It sent a signal, just 3 words. "We request meeting." The Empress prepared for their arrival. The throne room was guarded and quiet. Jake stood at her side, now dressed in a dark formal robe with silver lines, his new uniform as an advisor. The ship sent down a single visitor. It looked strange. Tall, with smooth golden skin and no visible mouth. Its eyes glowed blue. "I am Aelor," it said. "We are the Eliari. We seek understanding." Virelia spoke calmly. "Then you are welcome here." Aelor looked at Jake. "We saw what your human did. The protector. The hidden one. He is interesting." Jake nodded politely. "I only did what was right." Aelor tilted his head. "Earth creatures are rare, but you are sharp. A mind in silence." "We're more than what we seem," Jake replied. Aelor turned to the Empress. "Our kind watches from afar. We test new empires. You passed." Virelia looked surprised. "Passed what?" "The test of peace," Aelor answered. "Many strike first. You did not. That matters." Jake watched closely. He knew this Eliari was not just a visitor, it was a scout. And this peaceful talk? A test inside a test. Jake's new role after the Eliari left. The Empress called Jake to her chamber again. "They respect you," she said. "And I see why." Jake looked at her. "You think they'll return?" "Yes," she said. "And I want someone I trust to lead our contact with them." Jake blinked. "Me?" Virelia smiled. "You understand machines. You understand people. And you know how to stay calm under pressure. That's rare." Jake felt a weight on his shoulders, but also pride. "You trust me that much?" he asked. "I trust you more than most in this palace," she said softly. Jake nodded. "Then I accept." Lonely thoughts. That night Jake sat alone in his room looking at a small object, a broken key from Earth. It was all he had left from home. He remembered his old life. Boring, quiet, forgotten. He was no hero there, but here? He had stopped traitors, saved a ruler, advised an empire. And now? He would speak with visitors from another galaxy. "I'm not a pet anymore," he whispered to himself. Then he smiled. "I'm something new, From the story, I became the pet of an alien empress, but she doesn't know I understand her language. Jake Carter stood in front of a long silver mirror. He wore a dark blue coat with golden patterns across the chest. A silver star-shaped badge was pinned to his heart. The badge had a simple name: Earth Liaison. He had come a long way from being a silent pet in a golden cage. Now he was about to speak for his planet. Not just to the Thalzar Empire, but to the galaxy. The Great Gathering. The sky above the palace shimmered as more ships arrived. One by one, they floated down like glowing insects. These were the guests of the Galactic Accord, a council of many alien races who met once every 100 years. This time, they were meeting early because of a human. The Eliari scouts had told other civilizations about Jake. A forgotten species once seen as weak and simple had suddenly shown reason, cleverness, and courage. Now everyone wanted to know more about Earth. The Empress Virelia stood beside Jake as the guests arrived. "You ready?" she asked. Jake smiled. "No, but I'll go anyway." She smiled too. "That's what makes you different." The council begins. The council hall was the largest room in the palace. It had a high glass ceiling, through which the stars could be seen. Floating seats formed a large circle. Each seat was filled with leaders from different worlds. Some were small and glowing. Some had wings. Others were made of water or stone. But all of them had sharp minds. Jake sat beside Virelia. His translator device was working perfectly. The Eliari leader, Alor, floated to the center. "We are gathered here," he said, "to learn, to listen, to decide." He looked at Jake. "We invite the human, Jake Carter, to speak." Jake stood. The room grew silent. He had no paper, no speech, just his heart. Jake's speech. Jake looked around the room. Every eye was on him. "My name is Jake Carter. I come from a planet called Earth. For most of my life, no one in this room knew I existed. I was just one human among billions." He paused. "Then, I was taken by accident. I became a pet. I lived in a cage. No one knew I could understand them. I listened. I learned. I saw what this empire was like. I saw its heart." He turned to Virelia. "I saw kindness. I saw leadership, and when danger came, I had a choice: hide or help. I chose to help." He looked at the others. "I don't know if humans are the smartest or the strongest, but I know we care. We try. We fight for what's right. That's why I'm here." There was silence. Then Alor spoke again. "Well said." And slowly the aliens began to clap. Some made clicking sounds. Others hummed or flashed lights. But they were all clapping in their own way. New allies. After the speech, Jake spoke with many leaders. Some offered to visit Earth. Others wanted to send teachers and scientists. One offered him a book made of living light. But one thing became clear: Earth would no longer be ignored. Thanks to Jake, the planet had a voice in the galaxy. That night, Jake stood on the palace balcony. Stars stretched across the sky like rivers of fire. He breathed in the cool air. The Empress joined him. "You did well," she said. "Thanks," Jake replied. "I was shaking inside." She smiled. No one saw it. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Virelia asked, "If a ship left for Earth tomorrow, would you go?" Jake looked up at the sky. "I don't know," he said. "Part of me misses it. But Earth doesn't need me right now, you do." She nodded. "Then stay. Help me build something better." Jake smiled. "That's what I want too. A new threat." Just as things seemed peaceful, a dark cloud appeared in the stars. Strange signal reached the palace. A deep repeating sound. One word, translated many times, kept coming through: consume. The Eliari intercepted it first, then other races confirmed it. Something old and dangerous was waking in deep space. A black ship had been seen in a dead system. It didn't speak. It didn't ask. It only moved. And things disappeared behind it. Planets, stations, fleets, all gone. Jake met with Virelia and the council leaders. "We don't know what it is," Aelor said, "but it's not like us. It doesn't want peace." Jake looked at the star map. The black ship was still far, but it was moving slowly and directly toward the heart of the galaxy. "It's coming here," he whispered. The choice in. The days that followed, the palace changed. Scientists worked day and night. Ships were prepared. Weapons were tested. Jake trained with the palace guards. He studied battle tactics. He helped with planning, and still, the Empress watched him. One evening, she called him again. "I need you to lead the first contact team," she said. "If we meet this dark force, I want you to be the one who speaks first." Jake was surprised. "Me? Why?" She looked at him kindly. "Because you understand silence. You listen before speaking, you wait, you think." Jake nodded slowly. "Then I'll do it." A message in the darkness. Jake stood on a small scout ship near the edge of the Empire. A larger fleet waited behind, him ready to fight if needed. Then on the radar it appeared, a shape as dark as night with no lights, no sound. The black ship. Jake opened the channel. "This is Jake Carter of Earth. We do not wish to fight. Who are you?" Silence. Then a cold voice replied. "You are food." Jake's eyes narrowed. "No, we are not." The voice answered. "You are small. Weak." Jake smiled. "Small doesn't mean helpless. Weak doesn't mean silent. We protect our own." Then he cut the line. The black ship paused, and slowly, it turned away. A future among stars? The danger was not over. But the black ship did not attack that day, and the galaxy saw something new. Human had stood against fear and had not blinked. Jake Carter returned to the palace a hero, but he didn't ask for rewards. He asked for peace. He helped start a new group, a council of young leaders from many planets. He taught them about Earth's mistakes and Earth's hopes, and every day he stood beside Virelia, no longer a pet or a prisoner, but a friend, a voice, and a symbol of what humanity could become. Final lines. Jake once lived in silence. Now his voice reached the stars, from a cage to a council, from a forgotten man to a galactic guide. He had not just survived, he had belonged.